Welcome to Comic Book Theater. This is the War Dog with my co-host, JR. What's going on, JR?
What's up, War Dog?
Not much. So there's some funny news, and I've got a special guest here to introduce our first story to you, Maritn Scorcese. John, Marvel movies are not cinema. They're theme parks. I guess I can agree with you on that. John.
I'm over here.
John, you're over there. Sorry.
Over
You look so much alike.
Thanks, man. Thanks, buddy. Maritn Scorcese, where do we begin with that silliness, man? Talk about somebody who is sounding a little pretentious, wouldn't you say? Maybe a little full of themselves about how cinema is this amazing medium, and that, I mean, I'm embellishing what he said, but basically to say it's not cinema, man, there's a lot of stuff that he's put on film that I wouldn't call cinema either, to be quite honest with you about it. And not only that, some of the stuff that he gets critically acclaimed for are freaking snooze fests, man. So if he equates snooze fest with cinema, I wouldn't want to be cinema if I was the MCU.
Yeah, and like Samuel L. Jackson said, not everybody likes your movies either. Right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, it's one of those things where, of course, he's entitled to his opinion, but man, talk about sounding elitist. Are you kidding me? Like, look, we're comic book nerds, man. We're used to persecution. We're used to, we're used to the worst of the worst from bullies. From the time we revealed that we were comic book nerds to today, when we're both in our 40s and people are like, those comic books, son, they're for kids. I don't think adult grown men should be, or women should be, probably shouldn't be reading that stuff, because it's just a bunch of people running around in their tights. Stupid garbage like that we have to put up with. And look, the MCU has been good for us as far as nerds go. It brings us into the popular culture. Now, all of those people who before were calling you a nerd, they're seeking you out. They're like, hey, so what's this Spider-Man guy all about? Or tell me a little bit about this Tony Stark cat. What's up with him?
Yeah, you know what? It's like saying that like comic books aren't, I guess, literature. There's been a lot of really, really great comic book stories that were really well thought out and put together. And, you got to write a script, a detailed script to describe to an artist how to draw this stuff. So, I mean, like you said, we've been hearing this from the literary side of things. And then, you hear it from Maritn Scorcese, saying that, these comic book movies aren't cinema. I don't know. That's kind of like a slap in the face to some of these actors, because like Robert Downey Jr. played Iron Man spectacular. Could you imagine anybody else as Iron Man? Chris Evans as Captain America. Amazing. I mean, these people that played these complex characters did such an amazing job. And these people that wrote these stories did such an amazing job. I mean, I can't agree with Maritn Scorcese on that.
Well, and you got to remember back to that let's talk Stan Lee for just a second, okay? Remember back our history about Stan Lee is he was getting ready to flat out quit doing comic books. His dream was to write the Great American Novel, which I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, any of our writers that are listening, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. I assume that if you're American and you're a writer, you kind of do want to write the Great American Novel. I mean, that there's a standard there. There are great names to compare yourself to at that point. But let's be honest, man, for the 20th century, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a more prolific, more influential writer than Stan Lee. And look, that's not to disparage Jack Kirby or any of the artists that he worked with, but Stan Lee wrote a lot of good stories there in the Silver Age for Marvel. I mean, I don't really think that that's debatable. Now, the method that he used, okay, we can have that discussion, but still, I mean, you're on a very short list before you get to Stan Lee's name for any medium of writing.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think if you put the sum total of Stan's work together into a book, it does equate to the great American novel. I mean, the whole story of Spider-Man, because I think Stan's pretty much responsible for most of early Spider-Man, as far as I know. I'm not like an expert like Freddie Prinze is, but but I think Stan wrote most of the Spider-Man.
Yeah. I mean, look. Without Stan, there isn't a Spider-Man. Okay, and people can criticize the method with which they created Spider-Man. It's like we've talked about before. You're probably not doing anything right if you don't have some critics. Okay, that's really the bottom line there, and it's really not disputable historically that Spider-Man is the greatest Silver Age born superhero of all time. There's not a close second. I don't care who you talk to or who you bring up, because to me, he's in the top three of Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man, and then everybody else. Okay. And Superman and Batman were both golden age superheroes. I'm sorry, Batman's not a superhero. Comments. Tell me why Batman's a superhero, you Batman fans.
I
Sorry.
think he's a superhero, but
Oh,
I
okay. No, hey, you tell me how he is a superhero, because you know what his superpower is? Money and prep time.
yeah. I guess you have to assume that a superhero has superpowers.
That's the
Is that
assumption I'm working under.
I don't necessarily believe that powers are necessary for somebody to be a superhero. I think being a superhero it means more to be doing the right thing for very little profit or gain. That would be my idea of a superhero.
And and see, I guess I do abide by a more strict guideline of what a superhero is having superpowers. Because to me, a hero is important and a hero is good, but you have to have that distinction between the two, because if you don't, then why don't you call everybody who's a hero superhero, and why don't you call everybody, or why don't you go the other way and just say all of these are just heroes?
Though, would it extreme? I mean, so let's say Batman has extreme intelligence, and you did say he's always prepared, he's always ahead on things, he knows what to do, he knows how to react. Would that be a superpower? Would that make you somewhat superhuman?
Well, that's a good question. And this is the one thing I hate to bring this up, because somebody who is a bit more of an expert than I am on DC will tell me that they explained their way out of this and that it's no longer canon. But my understanding is that Argus and Amanda Waller termed Batman as a what? Okay, we all know that Marvel owns the rights to the term superhero. That's why they did quick comic book history lesson. That's why they did the generic comic book back in the 80s. That was the white covers at generic, and just started using superhero and all these really generic terms so that they could then copyright all of them and own them. So DC started using metahumans. That's why you'll hear metahumans in the Arrowverse, and we'll touch on the Arrowverse, I'm sure, later in the show too. But Argus and Amanda Waller have classified Batman as a metahuman. I don't know what they characterized as his superpowers to be metahuman, but I know at one time that was canon. Like you say, Lord knows after Rebirth and after all these other things, I don't know.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I think in some of the recent Batman stuff with like the Batman Who Laughs and stuff, he kind of like time travels and stuff maybe, or goes to different universes. I don't know if that makes him a superhero. That is an interesting. This is an interesting argument, though. I mean,
you,
what makes you a hero versus a superhero?
well, and look, it's no less impressive that to me, it's actually more impressive that a man with no actual superpowers would get out there and trade blows with Darkseid or take on Superman. To me, that's more impressive. It just so happens that he's Batman and the writers have given him this crutch of always being prepared, always having had prep time, having a plan for every eventuality. Um, I don't know, man. That there's just, to me, there's not enough time in a day. There's not enough time in 80 years to come up with a contention plan for everything. There just isn't.
Yeah, I think this is would be could be a long discussion. We could go
It could
back and
be.
forth and back and forth on what really characterizes somebody as a superhero versus not a superhero. And I mean, you could write a whole new comic book company and call somebody with just ordinary human abilities a superhero, and then
You
all of a
could.
sudden you've got a superhero. But so you mentioned something about the Arrowverse. What's going on with that?
Yeah, man. So Crisis on Infinite Earths is going to be their crossover this year, and really, even if you're not into the Arrowverse on the CW, their crossovers are some of the best crossovers on TV, in my opinion. They find a way to bring everybody under the tent, and they find a reason to give everybody that reason to glom together and basically be the Justice League without being able to call it the Justice League, which corporates. Anyway, getting off in the weeds there a little bit too. So they've revealed some of the first looks of some of the cast pictures, and the one that I'm obviously most excited about is Brandon Routh's portrayal as Kingdom Come Superman. We I know this was part of a podcast that we did early on about Kingdom Come being one of my favorite DCs, actually one of my favorite comic book stories of all time.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
great one.
it's amazing. So to get him in as Kingdom Come Superman is awesome. The rumors that I'm hearing about it make it even more awesome, especially for old school superhero moviegoers. Got to go all the way back to Christopher Reeve's Superman. This is this is the rumor that I'm hearing is that his portrayal of Kingdom Come Superman is going to be the end of the Christopher Reeves Superman story. So all of those movies are supposed to become canon in the Arrowverse. And not the exact Arrowverse, but it really depends on how they finalize their Crisis on Infinite Earths as to whether it does or not. Because again, old school comic book readers know Crisis on Infinite Earths was a way for them to meld together all the various Earths that they had, all the iterations together, and to streamline DC continuity in the 80s. That's what that was for. They got rid of a bunch of characters, they wrote them out through deaths, etc. But anyway, they do that depending on how they end up writing the ending for the crossover will depend on whether those movies actually become canon or become part of a lost world during the during that Infinite Crisis type storyline, you know,
Yeah,
or I'm sorry, excuse me, Crisis on Infinite Earths.
yeah. I mean, I guess the exciting thing about that, I'm a big fan of the Flash TV show on the CW. I think it's amazing. It's one of my favorite shows. I watched Batwoman. I know, don't crucify me for that one. I checked it out, and one of the mysteries was where's Batman. And after seeing that, and then all this Crisis on Infinite Earth stuff, there is that excitement and that appeal that maybe Batman will show up in this somewhere, and I mean, Batman could be a part of the CW. I mean, Superman is, right? Flash is. So
Yeah,
we might be getting a Batman at some point.
I would not be hopeful. I want to be, as a comic book fan, I want to be as a realist and somebody who kind of dabbles around the edges of trying to understand DC properties and how they do these things. One of the main reasons that they couldn't do Batman in the Gotham series is because, now again, that was on Fox too. So that may have had something to do with it. But my understanding is they don't want actual Superman, like a real Superman, written like a real Superman, and they don't want a Batman on television. They want to reserve those for movies only. I think that's a misstep. That's me personally.
Yeah, I
I,
agree.
I, I mean, if anything that DC has done considerably better is that shared universe on TV of the Arrowverse. I like it. I like it. The TV shows, the Netflix TV shows and the Defenders and stuff like that. It was okay. It was good. I enjoyed it, but it didn't feel as big well, obviously it wasn't as big when they became the Defenders, because that did not go over well with most people. It was just underwhelming. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I think everybody's major problem was Iron Fist. Nobody really liked Iron Fist. I didn't mind him. I thought he was all right. I thought it was an interesting show. Maybe Jessica Jones too, but I thought the Jessica Jones show was pretty good as well. Um, you know, but back to the Infinite Earth, or the Crisis on Infinite Earth. I heard that the Titans from the DC universe might actually make an appearance in that show as well, which would leads me to this next exciting idea that maybe Swamp Thing might actually pop up in this too. That would be really cool.
I would love for a Swamp Thing show to. I would love for Swamp Thing to come back. Firstly,
Oh yeah,
um, I have said for a couple of years now, and this is going back to comic books specifically. Do go back and look at all of the entire run of Swamp Thing in DC and Vertigo both. Those covers that they did for Swamp Thing, unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. They were very artistic, very, very creepy and horror. I mean, it was great. It was great. If you're going to collect a series from that 80s and 90s era and not really care about value so much, except for the first appearance of John Constantine, except for that one, the rest of it doesn't have a whole lot as far as value, but you want amazing covers, check that whole run out, man, because those covers are just unreal.
didn't Alan Moore write like 50 issues
Yes,
as well?
yes, it's good. Don't misunderstand. It's good. It's good, and yeah, Alan Moore, or yeah, did the writing, and yeah, man, it's one of those things where, and I will tell you guys too, I am a recent collector of Swamp Thing, so that's not me trying to pump up prices or anything. I want to keep them low so I can finish my run, honestly, if I could.
Yeah,
But
take it easy.
I don't think I have that kind of pull either. But I would love. Look, man, I remember watching Swamp Thing as a kid on TV, and it was awesome. I loved it as a kid on TV, and that was with no CGI or anything like that. That was just some dude in a rubber suit.
Oh yeah, I mean I loved it too, and just like the Hulk with Lou Ferrigno. I mean those were some amazing series. That those were fun to watch. Um, there's so I think we talked this one a little bit, talked this one to death. The only the last thing that I have is just that I heard that Jon Snow from um, Game of Thrones is going to be Black Knight in the Eternals movie. And then I guess, I mean, maybe the speculation is that it could turn into a Captain Britain movie and things like that. And I know neither of us know anything about Black Knight, but I just wanted to bring that up in this. That's the, I guess, the one tidbit of information that might be
Yeah,
useful out of this whole show.
I mean, look, the Black Knight is an underused Avenger for sure. Um, has It's something to do with his sword that gives him the powers. And by the way, again, guys, if you're a fan of the Black Knight and you know all this stuff, give us comments down below. Correct us where we're wrong, because I'm going to just start making some wild assumptions if you don't. Okay, and that'll be fine by me. I'm used to that. But I believe his power is derived from his blade, the black blade, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's made from a meteorite or something.
Something like that. Yeah, man, bring him into the MCU. Let him see what he does. It'll be interesting, and I think this is one of those cases, kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy was, where there's not a huge fandom of the Black Knight. You guys, we're gonna hear 14 or 15 people be like, "I've been on the Black Knight bandwagon since the day I was born." No, you weren't.
Yeah,
No, you weren't. If you were, we would have been seeing posts on the Collector's Corner or on Instagram of your amazing Black Knight collection. So don't give me that. Don't give me that I've been a fan since day one, because that's not true. He would still have an ongoing series if y'all were.
yeah, I don't believe there's many Black Knight fans out there. I think that was one of the cheaper like keys that at one point that I was looking at trying to get. I know you're not a Game of Thrones fan, but any Game of Thrones fans who watch this, I just hope that Black Knight doesn't go around and say she's my queen, because at the end of Game of Thrones, I mean, Jon Snow made this complete transformation from being like the most important character to this little kind of whiny, bitchy character. And all he said for like the last 5 shows was, she's my queen. And he lets all this crazy shit happen. That normally, you know, the real Jon Snow, if George R. Martin had written it, would have never said. Um, but that's all I got for this one. I mean, do you have anything more that you want to talk about?
Nah, man. The only well, I tell you what. Let me just plug a couple of things here real quick. On the 2nd November, we're doing Southwest Missouri Microcon. Stephen Butler is going to be there. Ryan Kincaid is going to be there. Cullen Bunn is going to be there. If you live in Northwest Arkansas, Southeast Kansas, or Northeast Oklahoma, likely you're within an hour or two drive of where this is going down at. Come see us. I'm going to try and get some interviews if I can with some of these guys. I think that'd be pretty cool to get some of these guys to just say hey and see how things are going, see if they've got any projects going, that kind of thing. But that's November 2nd. I'm going to have a vendor booth there too, so you can pick through my dollar bins if you wanna, and come see some corner artists or like Lagan Chase, who's been on the show recently. He'll be there, open commission list, that kind of thing. Come support a corner artist, a local artist guy. That's really about it, man. Come check us out at the Collector's Corner.
Yeah, the Collector's Corner is a fun place. Check it out, definitely. I think The one thing, if you get a chance, check out my video rant on Freddie Prinz's reaction to
Yes.
Star Wars. That was so much fun to do. You might look at it and think that I was really triggered, and so I made this video. But to be honest with you, I watched it. It gave me a good laugh. I thought about doing a video, and then in order to do the video, I had to watch the video a few more times, and it got painful, more and more painful every time that I watched it, because the dude is just off on so many things. So if you get a chance, check that one out. And if I'm wrong about anything, please make some comments and tell me you're an idiot. I don't care. Like, I don't really get offended. If I just make these videos for fun.
Yep.
And if you think that I'm an idiot, tell me I'm an idiot, and I'm okay with that. As long as you watch the video, right?
That's exactly right, man. We're doing it for the content.
Exactly.
We're doing it for the. I mean, the love of nerdy stuff and the content, man. Give folks a little, hopefully, a little bit of joy and help voice some of what their opinions are too. Because I mean, really, let's be honest here that the show is basically about the nerd community, for the nerd community, by the nerd community.
Yeah.
There's there's nothing else to us. We ain't got no fancy. I don't have a fancy set behind me. Now Todd's working on some green screen stuff, so if it looks like I'm on the beach somewhere, that's not where I'm at. That's not where I'm recording this from.
Yeah, I've got my little tricks here and there. And if any of you guys watch our videos, and you have any ideas on anything that you want us to talk about, leave it in the comments.
Absolutely.
We will talk about anything. And heck, you might even join us and talk about it as well. So please, like, comment, subscribe, and that's all I got.
Be
All
good or
right.
be good at it, man.
Peace out, everybody.